They actually also know which game is going to win next year, the year after, and the year after. The Oracle told me that the game of the year 2025 was going to be made by a studio who found the formula to make it up here on stage. They were driven by idealism and wanted players to have fun. And they realized that if the developers didn't have fun, nobody was going to have any fun. They understood the value of respect, that if they treated their developers and players well, those same developers and players would forgive them when things didn't go as planned. But above all, they cared about their game because they loved games. It's really that simple.
Very few games have enthralled me so much to force my hand into pulling an all-nighter on a work night. Cyberpunk, Baldur's Gate, and now Expedition 33. A fantastic game, a beautiful story, a wonderful work of passion made manifest. Welcome all you beautiful ladies and animals, and before I even get started, go play Expedition 33. Go try it out. It's on Game Pass. It's $50 in a sea of $80 AAA disappointments. I'm not even gonna tell you anything yet. Go in blind. You'll love yourself for it. Still not convinced? Okay, let's go over the basics. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a turn-based narrative adventure game set in the fictional world of France. Just kidding, France doesn't exist. Expedition takes place in Lumiere, a place that just so happens to be very French. It was destroyed decades ago in an event called the Rupture, where this massive monolith appeared, and in front of the mountain stands the Paintress, an unknowable being who paints a number on the cliffs each year, subsequently vanishing people of that same age. Counting down from 100, we're on year 67, or number 33. No one over the age of 33 exists, and by the time the youth grows up, their age will eventually cross over with the Gommage, or Great Vanishing. So us, as Expedition 33, named for the numbers, set out to stop the Paintress as Lumiere heads into its last generation of survivors in this world that has no mercy. Okay, now go play it. That's it. Go play the game. Try it. And if you don't like it, try it again. You're still here? Okay, let's hype it up a bit more. Listen to this music. Now, almost every level in the game is accompanied by music that's this epic and amazing. Got it? Now go play the game. Now, if you're still here, then I'm assuming you have played the game to some extent. Even if you haven't, don't worry. I'm going to refrain from sharing any major spoilers until later on in the video. So to get into this game without spoiling some major things that really reframe the whole narrative, the first half of the review or so, we're going to be looking at content solely from the first act of the game. The first 6 to 10 hours, depending on how you go about it. Because yes, while it's set up in a series of dungeons, they're still somewhat open with some you can totally ignore. So let's delve right in that first third. I'll be honest out the gate, the first time I played through the prologue, I was lost in the art. The monolith ever present on the horizon, the surreal alter-Earth style of Lumiere being a copy of France but not quite literally. The characters feel fantastical yet grounded, plausible in their world's logic. That being said, the turn-based combat was my biggest barrier to entry. It really killed the momentum for me at first and took a minute to really click. especially since this kind of turn-based game is not one I've ever played before, outside of the Stick of Truth, but somewhere in the first proper dungeon level, the Spring Meadows, it clicked. The parries, the dodging, the balance of shooting and skills which eat AP while regular attacks inflicted status effects and gained AP. And once the ballet of combat finally made sense to me, I was hooked. Every encounter is rewarding and surprisingly difficult, even if you're like me and you played on the story difficulty. A lot of these fights really kicked my ass, at least the ones I was certainly underleveled for. It makes the whole experience feel very Elden Ring, where fights are grueling but fair, and once you outlevel them, it turns into a walk in the park. But we'll touch more on the gameplay in a minute, because firstly, the entire first act of the game is centered around hope, or the lack thereof. From the introduction of Gustav, our protagonist, looking off the monolith, to him rekindling a spark with his ex-girlfriend, Sophie, who is sent to Gommage at the turn of the year, making their reunitement a personal spark against this force of nature. The whole prologue in Lumiere is great. We get to see what's left of the city and what people get to deal with, how their culture is framed entirely by the Gommage. Some think it's unstoppable and not worth the little time they have left. Others showing optimism and bravery, some with nothing else to do. The red and white tree, a symbol of rebellion against the dying light, has its petals fashioned into bouquets for the soon-to-be departed. But with so many lost already, they have more flowers than they have people to accept them. And then we feel it. The helpless acceptance of death. It's not frightening. They've known it to be coming their entire lives, but it arrives all the same. The paintress marks the number 33 onto the monolith, and those aged of it pass on with the Gommage. Expedition 33 prepares to set sail, their resources dwindling from a lack of moral support, volunteers lessened by the hundreds year after year. But they set sail for the continent regardless, in the face of depressing odds. The 33 embark on a trip they do not expect to return from. And if everything was depressing already, it only gets worse. Arriving on the mainland, the expedition's first encounter is with a man. An old man. A very, very old man. He shouldn't exist. He should have gommaged. But here he is, and without warning...
Which expedition are you from?
Chaos ensues. Monsters from the depths of the fog, along with batterings of energy from the white-haired man, reduce Expedition 33 to cinders. Gustav, watching in horror as he loses sight of Maëlle, his adopted sister, who chose to join the expeditions rather than living out her remaining 9 years in cowardice. After the chaos, Gustav escapes by pure chance, washing up on shore in a land that makes no sense, glowing trees, floating rocks. But again, with a mystical paintress who erases generations, maybe the absurd is more comfort than surprise. As he goes on, Gustav discovers the bodies of Expedition 33, of the teammates he had shared drinks with the night before. Thinking himself alone, he raises his pistol, and...
You do that, we both die.
Lune is there, a surviving member of the expedition who helps him off the cliff. This is the story's first test of hopelessness. The world is rough, shows no mercy, and to make it, Expedition 33 is going to have to grit their teeth and be prepared to fight to the death with every enemy they come across. It's not if they continue to lose people, it's when. From here, Expedition 33 is back on track. They go on to find other members who survived, Maëlle and Ciel, before recruiting the help of a friendly face in this land of agony, Esquier, a giant blubbery French marshmallow.
Would you please help us?
There's a lot of you to carry. I'm strong, but I'm not that strong. I will need Flory,
Who's Flory?
one of my rocks.
Rocks.
See? Flory helps me swim. But Flory was stolen by my arch nemesis, the one who whose every step shakes the foundation of the world, the one known as Francois.
Looking for SKA special rocks that allow him to swim and fly, Expedition 33 goes to the stone-faced cliffs, hunting down the treasure before coming across a being of incredible darkness. A boss fight made of several phases, the first proper test of your ability to endure the chaos of the continent, and at the end, relief. The expedition prepares to cross the sea to the next area, and while waiting, Gustave and Maël skip stones.
Well, you know, like I always say, it's not about the rock. It's more about
The reintroduction of the white-haired man is not unlike his first sighting at the landing site. He shows up, ensues chaos, and kills an expeditioner. We see that even after he gives his literal all, Gustave didn't have the strength to even scratch the stranger. And on Maël's face, hopelessness. A sense of failure and grief that tears a hole in the expedition until a new stranger, Verso, steps in between the white-haired man and the rest of the team. They seem to be working together, but Verso also seems to care, helping the expedition run away and break free before things get even worse. This whole first act is raw emotion sandwiched by grief. The opening puts us in the boots of those watching their loved ones leave, unable to fight back against the Gommage. The middle forces us into the absurdity of the continent, from talking turtles.
You're here to steal? Oh my word! Humans! Well, over my dead body! Rah!
To sky whales and a culture of wooden dolls who love to fight. And at the end, grief returns, the pain and suffering of this merciless world, reminding us how close the end always is. If by the end of Act 1 you're hooked, good, because the rest of the game only heightens and elevates the experience so far. The combat becomes more interesting as status effects and mechanics deepen with layers, new styles of parries and unique enemy variations that keep it fresh. New mechanics come into the game literally up until the very final boss fight. Earlier I called the combat a ballet. That's because while Expedition is turn-based, it's not inactive. It's not like Baldur's Gate or chess, where you make a move and the enemy makes a move. In fact, you have to be constantly engaged, and there's some fights where the enemy will play 100 times more than you do, determined by the character's speed. But with the ability to counterattack on perfect parries, means that you're continuing to fight even when it's not your turn. Then there's all the mechanical depth that adds intrigue. Literally, up until the very end of the game, Expedition will throw a new enemy you've never seen at you, so there's constantly learning being done whenever you enter a new fight. What the enemies are weak against, what they are strong against, what's the timing of their attacks, how does the mechanic or status effect they're putting on you do? Even until the endgame, I kept finding encounters that kept this Ballad of Blades alive and fresh. Always some new combination of enemies that tested your team in their own skills. Between Gustave, or Verso, who's more about stringing big damage on long combos, Maël, who can break enemies, Lune with her elemental mastery, Ciel with a deck of cards that curse and bless at the same time, organizing your team so that you can better face the enemy you're put up against was one of my favorite things to do. An enemy who is actually healed by fire, time to swap out Lune for Ciel, or take off her fire skills so that we're throwing ice instead. Some enemies are easy to parry, others make it really hard, and mastering those combos so that you can constantly be killing your foes even when it's not on your turn is just so satisfying. And by the end of the game, I could feel myself slipping into a kind of zen state, where I knew my combos intimately, and because the UI is designed so well, I could rattle off attacks in succession before the icon even came up to tell me what the abilities were. And the best part about the gameplay is how it reinforces the story and themes at play. It feels like an actual struggle when you get into fights, a tug-of-war, where you strike and have to hold out, endure and survive until it's your turn again. That constant back and forth always keeps you on your toes, and really keeps the idea of persistence alive in the back of your mind. Flurries of attacks require your undivided attention, because a single slip could mean you're going in the dirt. It's such a cathartic feeling to cling on to the edge of life and just by inches squeak out a victory that feels honest and earned. And it's also a feeling that never gets old. Before we move on, let me remind you, if you've for some reason gotten this far and haven't played the game for yourself, please go play it. If you're interested enough to watch this video, go try it. And if you already have or just absolutely can't get into it, know that from here on out, there are going to be some major spoilers for not just Act 2, but the story as a whole up until the end. Final warning, but without further delay, let's get into...
I've never seen you before.
First expedition. Expedition 0.
Expedition 0? But how are you alive and not...
Old? I don't know exactly, but some of us stopped aging and were not affected by the gamage.
Some of you? Like the man on the cliff?
Anwar, our commander.
Why? Why did he massacre our team?
How could he turn on his own people?
He believes his immortality is a gift from the Paintress. Killing her would kill him too, and he enjoys living forever.
After Gustav's death, the most pressing issue on the script is truth, or like previously, the lack thereof. Who is Verso, this mysterious stranger? What is he hiding? Who is the white-haired man? Is the expedition going to be betrayed? How does this tie back into the Paintress? Truth is at its weakest during Act 2, slowly unfurling as you move through the top half of the continent with multiple dungeons and characters that all ask you for the truth. For honesty, for the mask behind the mask that each character hides behind. Keeping in line, this is also where we learn the most about the world of the continent. We see more Nevrons, the monsters abound. We see more failed expeditions, and even some that were brutally ended. We learn that the white-haired man was from Expedition 0, who was among the first to come out here and gave his life to the Paintress in exchange for immortality. Or at least that's how Verso puts it. Revelations come through in gameplay as we unlock gradient blocking and gradient attacks, special power moves that we can use on enemies and in vice versa, them against us. Mixing up the flow of combat with moves that require the specific parry to protect yourself. Moving first through a bloody battlefield, we find a mass grave where most of the expeditioners previously met their end. Literal mountains of bodies stacked up by a monster so grand that it's nearly a Dark Souls boss. If you don't believe me, just look at this. This helps reveal just how brutal the expeditions are and why the citizens of Lumiere seem to be disenchanted with the romantic idea of conquering evil. There are literal thousands of corpses making up the ground we walk across, a sight so extreme that Maëlle begins to second-guess her reasons for coming out here and nearly spirals down into the same grief that captured Gustav when he first found Expedition 33. But not before being enveloped by the wrath of one of the game's most impressive bosses, a knight of flames and darkness who stands ankle-deep in the blood of previous expeditions, making that sadness and grief not only present in physical form, but showing us the monsters made to carry that grief throughout the world. This demon of blade and fire painted into existence from the monolith. Grief is a constant in the continent, and it either consumes you or you persist. But the world bears the weight of it regardless. Burying Gustav's arm, the expedition is forced to move forward even in the face of the horrors they've so far endured.
When one falls, we continue.
Thanks for being my family. See you in the next life.
The second stop on the way to the Paintress is an old train station from Old Lumiere, the larger half of the city that was lost in the fracture. Here we meet an old friend of Verso's, Monoko, another Gestrel who can turn into Nevrons by using their feet.
I will never join you again.
There will be a lot of fighting, though.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
There will be a lot of fighting.
Exactly.
Count me in then.
Good.
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 Yes, good.
But with another ally on board, an ally with a banging theme song, mind you, we can head into the center of Old Lumiere to find the Paintress's heart, supposedly Verso's key to stopping the artist for good. In the old city, we get to see just the first few glimpses of this world, of the ink-made variant of Mael with some brain-bending visuals and fantastic artistry. Something I didn't mention before, but the switch to a black and white in 4:3 ratio for these scenes where Mael is being connected with her ink family is just so incredible. Not only does it actually compact the world, squeezing our characters into a smaller frame, forcing them, specifically the Desandra family, to be closer together, but on a less symbolic level, it just looks incredible and is a creative camera move that is so unique to video games that it really makes these moments stand out, considering very few games also use their cinematic cameras so well. But yes, Mael is somehow connected to the Paintress, Renoir, and Alicia, the burned girl. Then we find out that Renoir is Verso's father, but unable to carry out a patricide, the heart of the Paintress disappears and the expedition needs to regroup, discovering that they need to instead track down two powerful beings named Axons to steal their chroma so that the mysterious curator can build them a weapon to break through the Paintress's shield barrier. And here, like many other spots, is a brilliant use of the world in a way that withholding information makes it feel so real. Verso pushes the expedition towards the two eastern Axons, saying the one in the west is up in the mountains and too far up to be worth chasing down. On a first playthrough, this seems like tactical planning, but on repeat playthroughs, you'd know that the Reacher, the third Axon, is connected to Alicia and Mael, and if they had gone up to it too early, there's a chance the expedition would unravel Verso's plot too early and they'd turn on him. There's many details like this, but few are so good at displaying the careful planning and determination of the plot as you move through the game, and really rewards those paying close attention to the script or whenever you're going through on a second playthrough. The whole through line about trust, which the entire party has a conversation about right after discovering that Renoir and Verso are related, is being twisted even now, with Verso still lying by omission to protect his own goals. It's just such a wonderfully crafted plot that avoids feeling contrived or going into Deus Ex territory by being cleverly set up and even readable if you're paying attention early on. But beyond that, the two Axons we do go on to fight both revolve around truth, or the absence of it. The Mask Keeper, more obvious, literally hides behind masks to conceal the truth from getting out. Then with the Siren, She Who Wonders, it's more to a matter of hiding the truth from beneath a mountain of fantasy and dreams, avoidant to the reality around them. It's a brilliant framing of truth, both externally hiding the truth from others, and internally hiding the truth from yourself. After dealing with the Axons, the expedition finally approaches the monolith, climbing their way to the top so they may finally confront the Paintress. Not only for one of the most impressive boss fights in the game, but finally the revelations of truth that have been on the tip of Act 2's tongue for the last few hours. With the Paintress put to rest and the expedition returning to Lumiere to grieve the loss of Gustave, meet up with their friends and family to celebrate tomorrow, as it comes unburdened by the countdown, Verso slinks away to his own to read a letter given to him by his sister Alicia.
For in ridding the world of the Paintress, you'd lose the sole force standing against the one who would erase us. The one who invokes the flowers of the gommage. An act of love. For he does love her. Your father. On her monolith, she paints a warning for us all. Of the few she can save as her power wanes.
While not yet shown to the rest of the expedition, we, the player, discover exactly what the connection between Renoir, Verso, and the Paintress was. The Paintress, Verso's mother, who paints life, and Renoir, his father, who paints death. With Renoir trying to remove his wife from this canvas for her own good, the numbers upon the monolith were not a damnation, but a warning, revealing those she could save as Renoir attempted to erase the people of Lumiere from the canvas to force his wife's fantasy to an end before it killed her. Verso's joining of the expedition, helping them defeat the painted Renoir, and the Paintress herself, did not save Lumiere, but instead banished his mother Aileen from the canvas, allowing the true Renoir to finish his goal and remove everything from the canvas itself. In a twist of the knife, the truth is deadly and present, as everyone who still remained in Lumiere begins to fade and the final gommage commences. In the end, truth does not bring liberation, but erasure. Verso's lie to save Lumiere only hastens its vanishing as the canvas collapses and the final gommage begins, not in defiance of his family, but fulfilling their unspoken wish. Act 2 of the game really opens up the entire universe by closing it in, revealing to us this made-up universe in which reality takes place. Upon a literal canvas from the real Lumiere, where Verso, not as we know him, is dead. His mother launched into a world of grief, trying to hold on to his soul. His father, Renoir, trying to destroy this source of Aileen's addiction, and Maëlle, the younger sister scarred by the loss of her brother, literally and metaphorically, wanting to hold on all the same. But with the truth revealed, we now delve into the sadness, the loss, the
You will smile the brightest smile. You will cry iridescent tears. You will know love, and you will know pain. You will know loss all too well, because we live in an unforgiving world. But you are strong, and you will survive. You will struggle, and you will learn. You'll find people to call your own, and you will shine as their guiding light. For you will change the world, and the people around you. You'll forever be our princess. I have decided on her name. And her name will be Maëlle.
Weighing heavy on the script from here on out, the burdens of grief determine the entire course of the canvas. The Desandre family is in shambles. Clee, the older sister, wages war against those who had killed Verso. Aileen and Renoir battle over the canvas like addiction. And Maëlle, now aware of her true life as Alicia, the muted and scarred daughter of the family, wants to just hold on as her mother did, not as a cope, but as a freedom, a place where she has friends, family, and the ability to speak. Just as he did to his wife, however, Renoir opposes Maëlle's connection to the canvas, wanting to rip her free so it does not consume her in denial and grief in the same way it had been consuming Aileen.
Papa, please. This is Verso's only canvas. You can't destroy the last piece of him that we have. This is my home now. You can't just decide...
Your home? After all that with your mother, you want to stay?
You know how little remains of my life outside.
Alicia, you'll die. You've already been here longer than you should.
But...
No. Look at me, I said no. I am not letting my daughter risk her life.
But with powers as a painter, Maël could bring back everyone they've ever lost. Gustave and Sophie, Ciel's husband, so many lost parents, and undo the effects of the gommage. They just need to kick Renoir out of the canvas so they're not re-entering into the same cycle of numbers ticking down as they were under the paintress Aileen. The canvas isn't just a setting anymore, it's a drug, a diary, a grave, and a wish all in one. And the gameplay even begins to feel like the final stages of grief here. Denial up front as Maël brings back Luneg and Ciel, talking about how we can bring everyone back, bargaining as she argues with Verso that this is the right choice to make, and even yells at Renoir multiple times about how she'll be different than her mother. This is the one place she has a voice, and she intends to make it count. As you roam around the map with the ability to now fly and get around easier, the map is opened more than ever before as it allows you to find and discover truths about the Desandra family and the marks they've left on Verso's canvas. This isn't just mechanical freedom, it's emotion and narrative freedom. The player's ability to traverse the world more freely now mirrors the unlocked emotional truths about the Desandra family. The world literally expands as the psychological boundaries fall apart. It's liberating, but also melancholic, because everything you now explore is rooted in loss and remnants of a shattered family. How Clee intervened just to make herself more in line with her own ideals, creating an endless array of Nevrons to seek out combat. Her lover, Simon, set on an endless warpath. How Esquier and Monoko were made as Verso's childhood friends. How else would a wee-woo marshmallow full of wine be the strongest creature in the continent? How Alicia went to be alone in the mountains painting the third axon. Speaking of, we see how the axons are not just major creations of Renoir, but also reflections of his family. Visages, he who hides truth with lies, representing Verso, and the very thing he's been doing throughout all of Act 2. The Cyrene, she who wonders, and Aileen, who simply creates and enjoys art, even if she is distracted by the grief literally eating her alive. The unnamed Axon and Old Lumiere for Clee, holding the weight of civilization on her back, as she is the only one grounded back at home, outside of the canvas. And the Reacher, always wanting to go for the stars, climbing and climbing, no matter how far away they are. Alicia, seeking to be more than what she's been reduced to. It's the kind of world building that would make Tolkien blush, where everything is meant to be here on purpose, not for the sake of this would be cool, but to reinforce the family's effects on their brother's canvas, even in post-mortem. These aren't just beings of power, they're self-portraits in the medium of godhood. Aileen the mother as the paintress, giver of life and creation. Renoir the father as the curator, the one who has to mend and clip at the edges to make sure that said creation does not run amok. All of their roles double back onto their purpose in the story and heart at the center of the family. You get to see as the veneer of the world pulls away and how it's not exactly a thing that stands on its own, but a reflection of who Verso was in life, and that helps reinforce why it'll be so destructive for Maël and Aileen to hold on to it. You can't move past your grief if you're holding it on life support. But eventually confrontation comes to be, as the expedition challenges Renoir in the heart of Lumiere for a battle under the Great Leaning Tower, in a grand battle of all battles so far, including the Axons, the Paintress, Renoir's painted form as the Curator, and finally, just barely, instead of fighting, the family gets to have a moment of reflection, of understanding that they're all hurt.
I can't lose them either. I've lost too much. Papa, see? I've lost so much.
We both lost so much.
In a brief moment of care for his daughter, not wanting to split them further, he gives up on force, Renoir leaves the canvas, trusting that Maëlle won't condemn herself to this life. He knows she won't, but he wants to believe in his daughter one last time.
You lied to your father.
No,
You saw it too. But he wanted to believe.
Thus leading us into the final confrontation. Verso, this painted replica of him, jumps into the space between the canvas and reality, finding the remaining little fragment of the original Verso's soul, keeping the canvas alive and painting its existence evermore. But he knows the truth.
You're tired of painting, aren't you? I'm tired too.
The end of Expedition 33 is fantastic, not because it pays off the emotional core or plays with interesting ideas and subverts them, because it does both of those things, but because grief is allowed to be at the center of both. I've seen a lot of people ask, what is the quote, good ending? Which there isn't. The Desandre family lost their son and have been tearing each other apart in the years to come after. Nothing good has come from that. There's no kumbaya, no happily ever after. There is the conclusion of grief, or the denial of it. Here, Clair Obscur gives you one of two choices, to side with Maëlle or with Verso. Destroy the canvas, or continue to live inside it. For Maëlle, it's freedom, purpose, denial. Verso isn't dead, he's right here. Gustave never died, he's right over there. But the denial is toxic. She never learns to move past it. She too will devolve to the same failures as the paintress, her mother, damning all her friends and family within the canvas to live a life of puppeteering. For if death is meaningless, then so is life, subconsciously holding her most loved friends hostage in a world of her own design. Verso's ending is no less devoid of grief, but represents moving on. In the real world, Maëlle is disfigured, mute, and half-blind. It's no normal life at all, let alone a perfect one that she could paint in her own image. But she's alive. She has her family in whole. Her sister, her father, and mother, no longer fighting, no longer in denial over Verso's death. A chance to heal and move on, free from the temptation of the canvas's addiction. And that's where the choice rests, essentially asking if you had a family member, your younger sister whose prospects for life are supposedly so low, would you let them indulge in their addiction at the cost of everyone around them so that they can live their remaining shortened life in bliss? Or do you cut them off and trust them enough to process their grief and come out stronger on the other side? In that way, Verso's ending becomes the good ending, even as it may feel stricken with sadness all the same. And in that grief, the entire story is framed. The canvas, this childhood play place created by Verso himself, who was taken too early from his family, turned into a paradise by the grief of his mother, becoming a battleground as Renoir attempts to get his wife to move on from her grief, then later falls into the same cycle as Maëlle's grief over not just Verso, a personification of both Renoir and Verso in a guiding hand, holds the entire canvas in the balance.
We could never tell if you were my brother or my father. But to me, you were both. Best brother and father I've ever had.
Grief creates this world of Gommage and Nevrons, but moving on from that grief is what allows Verso to rest. all of Act 3 does a good job of putting grief at the forefront and in the gameplay. It's at its most free, giving you a taste of that addiction of the canvas's power as enemies that may have been a boss all unto themselves in the past are easily swept under the rug now. You feel powerful, you feel grandiose, but you still feel better when you give it all away and you can move past that grief.
As you sail into the unknown, know that Lumiere stands with you. When you battle the Paintress, know that Lumiere fights with you. Let the stones of her monolith crumble. Let her body lie at the end of the world. Unable to paint another death, let the stars no longer be hidden by her oppressive silhouette. Let the world once again watch the sun rise without the shadow of her cursed figure. May the wind of renewal take you to the ends of the earth. Tomorrow comes. Thanks to you, Expedition 33.
Expedition 33 is not just a work of art, but a universe where art itself is a mode of magic. We only see the painters, the Desandra family who can create living worlds within a canvas, but we also hear of the writers. And with Renoir's dissatisfaction with Verso's passion of music, we can guess that other forms of art like music, dance, and more may be magical in some sense also. The world of the canvas is made of art, literally, being painted with chromatic colors, ink-based magic, and stains that leave behind a touch of character to the work. The music of the game is a fantastic score. You've been listening to it this entire time, but it's unironically one of the most touching, varied, well-made soundtracks to a game since Bastion. The characters are brought to life by amazing actors who lend their voices, writers who make them feel real, humanized, humorous, and depressing all at the same time. The gameplay by developers who poured years of passion and effort into making a game unlike none other. One that flows smoothly, one that's downright addictive. Every time you load up this game, it feels like you're going into the canvas where you just don't want to pull away. This game was a surprising hit that took the world by storm, with a world burdened by grief. Music sang by the heavens, and gameplay that feels so fresh that other JRPGs are certainly going to steal some of the ideas implemented within this game. I could go on even further, talking about how this game is fantastic in so many ways, how I love each character, how it knows to play on its own faults, making up for the clunky movement by implementing rage climb type levels. The way the whole studio and cast show so much passion and hundreds of other little details I didn't even mention here. And I might do so if there's enough bite for it. But I just wanted to get into the meat of the story and the symbolism that we see in the world of the canvas, and just talk about it from the meta-narrative lens, because Expedition 33's story is just so fun to unravel and learn about. Expedition 60, I'm looking at you. And even on a second playthrough, I'm discovering new things all the time that really prove how well it was planned out. With that being said, this video is already getting long enough, and I don't want it to be twice as long, so we're gonna leave it there. Let me know if you'd want to hear more about Expedition 33, and in the meantime, back to Warhammer. I want to give a big thank you to all my members and patrons that help me do what I do. If you want to join the Busty Expeditioners here on screen, you can join for just $1 a month and get early access to every video. But as always, stay cool, have fun, and be awesome. Buster out.